Well, hi there. This is Brent Smith, and I'm the Common Constitutionalist, and this is the Common Constitutionalist Weekend audio podcast. As it's really crappy outside here in New England, I just decided to forego going outside and doing the video or doing the video inside, so I'm just going to opt this weekend to do an audio podcast. I know it's not quite the same because you don't see my handsome mug on the screen. Yeah, okay, fine. But such is life. So that being said, today I've got a couple of topics to discuss. The first is Christine Blasey Ford. She won't go away. Like a bad penny, just keeps showing up. Blasey Ford is nominated for an alumna award. Yes, of course she is. And the second topic is a state court judge meddles in legislative business. Once again, where have we heard this? Almost like a daily basis. So those are the two topics we'll be discussing today on the Common Constitutionalist Weekend audio podcast.
You are listening to the Common Constitutionalist, broadcasting from an undisclosed location, free from the prying eyes of establishment black helicopters.
Okay, I am back. Now, remember when Christine Blasey Ford's life and career were going to be ruined by publicly making what could easily be false claims against now Justice Kavanaugh? Remember that? And frankly, like it or not, unless she or Justice Kavanaugh comes out with some sort of deathbed revelation and admits the truth, that's the way I'm going to have to leave it, because that her claims are false unless she proves them otherwise. It always sounds harsh and it sounds unfair, but that's just how it has to work. But of course her bravery in the face of such ruination drove her ever forward. And remember when I said this was all a bunch of bullcrap about her ruining her life and her career, certainly her career? Well, there's no way the leftist academic community, that's where basically she works at Palo Alto University as a psychology professor and speaker, and I guess a coach for those who want to beat the polygraph. Ha! Yeah, baby. But the leftist academic community, if I can speak, they're never going to shun her for coming out against any Trump nominee ever. I told you before, and I'll say it again, that she would be received like some sort of conquering hero, like Caesar or something coming back from battle, or in the movie The Ten Commandments, one of the first shots is of Moses riding in on a chariot and people throwing rose petals at his feet. And that's how I picture Christine Blasey Ford's return to the academic community, as she'd be praised to the hilt, basically, and probably given a bunch of awards. Well, son of a gun. This is from the National Review. It's not quite the Presidential Medal of Freedom, but, they write, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford has been nominated for University of North Carolina's Distinguished Alumna Award after publicly coming forward with allegations of sexual misconduct against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Jennifer Ho, I wonder if her middle name is Heidi. Get it? Jennifer Heidi Ho. Heidi Ho. Sorry, I couldn't resist. A professor in the Department of English and Comparative Literature at UNC nominated Ford. CBS 17, the local affiliate, published the letter in its entirety on Tuesday. This past Tuesday, I guess it was. The letter read in part, quote, "What Dr. Blasey Ford did on September 27, 2018 was something that was extraordinary in how ordinary it was." Whoop-de-doo. She told the truth about sexual assault she experienced when she was 15 years old at the hand of Judge Brett Kavanaugh. Never even a question, just a declarative statement from Jennifer Heidi Ho. Jennifer Heidi Ho continues, she made a statement and then answered questions for over 3 hours in front of a Senate Judiciary Committee with the cameras of the world trained on her, unquote. Now, I'll grant you, if you've never been in that situation, and most of us never have been in that situation, with the whole world watching, that could be unnerving. Heidi-Ho also preemptively dismissed any potential claims that her nomination was based on partisan politics. Oh, perish the thought. Quote, I love this. This is just, what a load of crap. Quote, it is about, this is Heidi-Ho being quoted here. It is about recognizing that the simple act of speaking, now listen, the simple act of speaking one's truth, especially when that truth involves sexual assault, is an act of bravery. We live in a society that does not believe women, the letter continued. Really? Oh, freaking really? Yeah. Quote, the many indignities that women experience in their day-to-day lives is proof of this, as is the continued attacks on Dr. Blasey Ford after her testimony, unquote. Now, I certainly am not denying the fact that women on a daily basis get harassed all the time by dirtbag men. And that's exactly what they are. They're a bunch of freaking dirtballs. It's one thing to say that, well, you know, you look nice today, or, oh, boy, I like that haircut, or nice shoes, or, you know, you look very attractive today. That's not sexual misconduct, and that's not harassment. We all know what it is. You know, we all know what it's like. I don't know. I can't remember several years ago. It could be decades ago, when some judge came out and says, you know, it was about a case of First Amendment rights on pornography or something like that, and the judge says, you know what? I can't necessarily describe pornography to you, but I know it when I see it, and there you go. Okay, to quote Heidi-Ho again, quote, by awarding Dr. Christine Blasey Ford as a distinguished alumna, UNC Chapel Hill sends a message to her, to our students, faculty, and staff, and to the larger community of the U.S., and the world and the galaxy and beyond. She didn't say that. I added it, but why not? That UNC Chapel Hill believes survivors of sexual assault, unquote, it concluded. Here's another little tidbit that I found rather amusing from Heidi-Ho's nomination letter. And it's funny that she actually kind of disses Ford a little bit by saying, quote, this is the letter, her nomination letter, quote, in many ways, Dr. Blasey Ford's accomplishments are not particularly extraordinary, unquote. Well, there you go. Thanks a lot, Heidi-Ho, for the compliment. No, thank you. But so, in other words, without publicly testifying to utterly baseless and unprovable claims, there's no way we'd be giving you this freaking award, because you're on your own, you're just not that dang distinguished. So, on that happy note, we're going to I love that. Hey, you're just not that extraordinary, Miss Ford. We're going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back. I'll gain my composure, and I'll come right back. See you.
You're listening to the Common Constitutionalist. Let the truth be known.
All right, welcome back. So we're discussing professor at UNC Chapel Hill, the Department of English and Comparative Literature, Professor Jennifer Ho. I just added the Heidi-Ho just because Heidi-Ho, Heidi-Hey. Cab Calloway in the Blues Brothers movie. Heidi-Ho. Gotta love that. What a classic. I ain't going down that road. Okay, so anyway, that's what we're discussing. And the fact that her nomination for a Distinguished Alumna Award has nothing to do with partisan politics or anything. So Ho insists, as the National Review writes, but Ho insists it's not all partisan and certainly not about politics. So let me translate that. It's leftist hyperpartisanship, and because we are academics, it's only about politics. As with the left, it always boils down to politics. So that's the unsaid translation to what she said, that it's not about politics or partisanship, because it always is with the left, period. All right, so in closing this segment, I want to talk about the truth. I want to talk about the truth. Her truth, his truth, one's truth, your truth, my truth, whoever's truth. There's only one freaking truth, people. That's it. Everything else is just opinion or spin. There's nobody's truth. You can't, well, that's your truth and this is my truth. No, that's not the case. There's only one truth. But this is what the left does. They live and they thrive in the gray areas between truth and falsity. And that's how they get away with this nonsense, is by living in the gray area. Well, she's speaking her truth. She's speaking truth to power. There's only one dang-gum truth. But if the left insists that it's her truth or my truth or her whatever's truth, then she's welcome to her own truth. No, she's not. But that's where they live, and that's how they get away with this neat trick, for want of a better term. So we'll take another quick break, and I'll be right back with the second segment. The the state judge that meddles in legislative business in the state of Montana. Be right back.
You're listening to The Common Constitutionalist. Let the truth be known.
All right, welcome back. Again, my name is Brent Smith, and I'm the Common Constitutionalist. Bringing you the second segment here. This is the state judge that meddles in state legislative business. What a stunner! And this is from this is from the website The Missoulian. Yes, The Missoulian, from Missoula, Montana. There you go. So it's a local paper. A state judge on Thursday upheld Missoula, Montana's 2016 gun ordinance, which requires background checks on all gun sales in city limits, even between private parties. Judge Robert Dusty Deschamps' ruling rejected an opinion from Montana Attorney General Tim Fox that said local governments don't have the power to limit the sale and transfer of firearms. Okay. State law, Deschamps wrote, says, quote, Missoula's governing authority must be liberally construed. That's suspicious. With every reason, here, listen to this, with every reasonable doubt as to the existence of a local government power or authority resolved in favor of the existence of that power or authority, unquote. So we got that? The judge basically is decreeing that the default position for the state or for the courts must always side with the state, of course, or government, whatever, rather than the individual rights of the people, of course, naturally. And if the state, and in this particular case, if the state doesn't rule the way a liberal judge wants, then the rule then defaults to a locality or however far down the ladder he's got to go to find an authority who agrees with him. So that's basically the bottom line for the judiciary in Montana, and frankly every other freaking state in most cases, and the federal government. At least the lower courts anyway. A quote, by invalidating the city of Missoula's ordinance, the Attorney General's opinion deprives Missoula of its own authority, unquote, Deschamps wrote. Well, duh. Missoula, he concluded, is authorized by state law to prevent felons from possessing firearms and can therefore require background checks within city limits. Now, Missoula City Council Chair Brian von Lossberg, sponsor of the ordinance, said Thursday evening the decision was the court decision, that is, was deeply affirming, as it's always been about public safety in Missoula, unquote. No, it's never about that. It's never about public safety. The left always cites public safety when it benefits them and only them. And it's really just about, as it always is with these leftists, it's about power and control. And the interesting thing is when we speak about power and control, we always think of these evil villains behind the curtain pulling the strings and everything, and it's not necessarily like that. It's not necessarily malevolence. They think they're being benevolent, frankly, the left. These leftists actually do think that they know better how to run our lives. And since they went, here we go. And since they went to college for this or that or whatever it happens to be, then they, by default, are the experts, of course. And so they don't understand why we are so averse to, just relinquishing control to them. They're the experts. They know better. So you should just let us do our jobs and sit down and be quiet and do what we tell you, because we know better than you, because we're educated in this stuff, and you're just American citizens. What do you know? It really is just that simple, and it really is the way these people think, that these people are the experts, that they're not sitting around in smoke-filled rooms in the back saying, how do we get control of them today? How do we do this? It's not that. They really honestly do think that they know better. And they don't understand why we don't understand that they know better than we do. It really is that simple. So we're going to take another quick break, and I'll let you know what else the Missoulian thinks of this. Be right back. You're listening to me, the Common Constitutionalist.
Yeah, baby!
All right, I'm back. I know, I just keep thinking of that word Missoulian. I don't even know why it cracks me up. It just does. So they write that several groups had weighed in on the case in Missoula County District Court, including the wicked, they didn't write that, I added it, of course, because that's what everybody's thinking, the wicked NRA, the National Rifle Association, they're so evil, as well as a group of 4 local citizens who shared their own experiences and support for the ordinance. In his ruling, Liberal Deschamps, I added liberal because he is, I'm sure. In his ruling, Deschamps mentioned specifically these citizens, I love that, who said they were not, quote, they were not zealots who support banning guns entirely, not entirely, of course, or taking away anyone's Second Amendment rights by banning guns entirely, unquote. That's not what they said, but unquote. Quote, these are folks who are both gun owners and non-gun owners, wow, that's a tough one, with a common sense of values around gun background checks, unquote, von Lossberg said. Remember, he was the Missoula City Council president or whatever the crap it was. So, this judge, all right, you remember, he mentioned these 4 citizens who came out against came out in support of the ordinance that says that the city of Missoula or town of Missoula or whatever the crap it is can have their own gun laws, basically restrict the freedom of the people in Missoula without it affecting Montana. And so that the judge mentions specifically these citizens. And so isn't that great? With true judicial temperament and fealty to the Constitution and the rule of law, the judge cites anecdotes instead of anything imperial. Oh, well, there you go. There's our justice system. So the Attorney General's office, this is the Missoulian writing again, the Attorney General's office expressed disappointment, I wonder why, in the ruling in an emailed statement. Quote, the state respectfully disagrees with the court's ruling and maintains that Montana law does not allow cities to enact a patchwork of firearms regulations, unquote, Department of Justice spokesman John Barnes said. Barnes added that the state was unable to file an additional brief in the case, which would have been filed on Monday. He said, quote, without the opportunity to fully argue the case, the state is constrained to either ask the court for reconsideration pending receipt of its reply brief or file an immediate appeal to the Montana Supreme Court, unquote. So, in other words, the state really didn't even get a chance to argue this case fully in front of Judge Deschamps. So Deschamps said in his order that, dig this, an immediate ruling, quote, clearly preserves the interests of the city's resources, the state's resources, and would bring the matter to a close. Of course it would. That's why you have to have an immediate ruling, because so the state can't come in and say, well, this is a bunch of bullcrap, and these are the reasons why. Those are the arguments put forth. And without having the state be able to argue the point, You just make an immediate ruling and bang the gavel and say, my word is law, and that's it. And unfortunately, that's the problem with our daggum judiciary all over this nation, not just the feds, but state courts too. They're all a bunch of legislators in black robes. At least that's what they think of themselves. It must be, obviously. So the Montana Attorney General to that Fox wrote that plainly interpreted, that means there's no question, it's as plain as day, the Montana legislature has prohibited all forms of local government from exercising any regulatory power over the purchase, sale, or transfer of firearms. In other words, it's a state thing, not a locality. You just can't have local rules. One city has one rule, another city has another rule. It's got to go by state. But of course, the legislative judge, said in his Thursday ruling, the Attorney General's failure to recognize the law's presumption in favor of the power of local governments like Missoula's is erroneous. And the NRA, during this case, pointed out the obvious, at least obvious to everybody but those dopes on the left, argued in the case that felons would not be deterred by the ordinance, but could, for example, simply find another person to pass the background check for them. And they said, rather tongue-in-cheek, which probably wasn't the smartest thing to do against this lefty judge, quote, to really keep guns out of the hands of felons, then perhaps the solution is to ban possession of firearms by everyone, the attorneys for the NRA argued. Not the smartest tact I've ever heard. Deschamps, the liberal judge, called the NRA's reasoning dubious at best. Well, it may be dubious to the leftist judge, but it's an absolute fact. That's why these criminals, are felons. They're criminals and felons because they don't follow the law. Duh! You can pass as many laws as you like and as many limits to our freedoms as you like, and it won't make a hill of beans worth of difference except for the law abiding. And not to the felons, to the criminals and whatever. They don't care. That's why they're criminals, because they don't follow the law, you freaking moron. But when it comes right down to it, it really doesn't matter what the Missoulian writes, what the judge says, what the Attorney General for Montana says. I agree with him, but what he says, it really doesn't make any difference because all these gun laws are unconstitutional. If you look at the Second Amendment, it's as plain as day. Any idiot, which is why they wrote it the way they wrote it, simple, plain English, any idiot can understand it. That all these gun laws and all these gun restrictions are unconstitutional. The Second Amendment says it plain as day, and it doesn't make any difference. But like I said, the Second Amendment never even entered the conversation during these arguments. It's unbelievable. It's utterly ridiculous. And it certainly wasn't uttered by the leftist judge Deschamps. So that's all I've got for today on this rainy, icky, cold day up in New England. But it sure as heck could be worse. Our prayers go out for the people of Panama City and Mexico Beach and all those guys that were wiped out by Hurricane Michael. Man, if you've seen some before and after shots, holy crap. Unbelievable, the devastation. I feel so bad for these people. I donated to Glenn Beck's Mercury One because those guys are incredible first responders. There are a lot of people that don't like Glenn Beck, so I'm not going to give. Well, I'll tell you, Mercury One is they might be originally affiliated with Beck, but he doesn't run it. He really doesn't have anything to do with it. And those guys do yeoman's work, man. So if you're going to donate to something, I stay away from the Red Cross and all those places because the bureaucracy is ridiculous and they spend a lot of money on the bureaucracy. Every dime that you give to Mercury One goes to the victims and to rebuilding. They don't make any money out of it. How do they get their money? They do fundraisers and they do auctions and stuff a few times a year to make the money to run Mercury One. That's how they get paid. They don't skim off the top like a lot of these charities do. So that's about all I've got. Y'all have a blessed balance of the weekend. I will try to stay warm and dry. Although this is New England, heading into winter, that probably ain't going to occur. Y'all have a great day. Take care.
thank you for listening to the Common Constitutionalist Weekly Podcast.